When a narcissist realizes that you've figured him out, the dynamic changes almost immediately. There's a massive shift, not always visible outside to everybody around you, but deeply by you. It's the moment that the illusion starts to crack, and whether you've confronted him directly or you've simply changed how you interact with him, he senses it and he sees it. This isn't about him just getting caught. It's also about him losing control. And control over the narrative, control over the relationship, control over how you see yourself, and control over his own image. For a narcissist, that loss feels huge, massive. And it triggers this piece that's a survival response in a narcissist, making him react and respond. The most common reaction inside of this is simply just rage. The rage surfaces really quickly. It's a shortcut to try to get back under control, and it's triggered by shame and guilt. But what it does is it creates fear, confusion, and emotional overload on you, and often that's enough just to disrupt your clarity, leave you confused, and leave you stuck. The narcissist's anger is rarely proportional to the situation, so it could be a small thing. You could have calmly asked about an inconsistency, or simply stopped engaging with certain drama, and all of a sudden this explosion. It's like catastrophic. You're like, why? Because your detachment starts to threaten the system that he's dependent on. Like for years, maybe even for decades, you've played a role in his life. You've been the mirror, you've been the source of supply, you've been the validation that he needed in his life to feel better about himself. And now that role is cracking. And so as a result, he's going to use every tool he can to restore the old dynamic and get you back under control. And that might mean showing you anger, trying to guilt trip you, having different manipulation, even charm. Like it's important for you to recognize that each of the times that you have these responses, it serves the same purpose, to keep you confused just enough to leave you stuck. And if anger doesn't work, he might pivot. Like you might become the victim, crying, apologizing, bringing up his painful childhood, or talking about his deepest fears, try to pull you back in. He'll pull out every story that you ever made him feel like compassion for him, hoping you'll lean in again. Or maybe he'll escalate into full-blown gaslighting, telling you that what you saw wasn't real, that what you heard was a misunderstanding, what you're feeling is just overblown. Each tactic is strategic. It's not just random, it's not thoughtless, it's strategic, knowing this is what's going on because he understands. He understands something very simple. Narcissists do this. If you trust your own reality, he loses. Like if you trust his version of events, he wins. It's that straightforward. It's winning, it's losing. That's what he's looking at. When you begin pulling away, whether that's emotionally or physically, the narcissist will oftentimes escalate through a couple predictable stages. First off, you typically have rage. Like it's designed to kind of like shock you back into submission. Be like, nope, you come back to me. You better make sure I'm training you how you can or can't respond to things. Sometimes it'll be, the second thing will be victimhood. Like he'll make himself the center of the attention and the new narrative where you're the abuser and he's the wounded party. And it's like, he's the victim. Third stage is oftentimes love bombing. Temporary like resurgence of affection, promises, change, grand gestures, all meant to create doubt in your decision to detach. You're like, well, maybe I shouldn't. And the fourth one oftentimes is smear campaign. Like you can't be controlled privately. Well, you're going to get discredited publicly. Each time these stages will reflect a single fear underneath: exposure. Exposure of who he really is, exposure of the lies that he's told, exposure of the way that he's operated behind closed doors. And the nuance inside of this that oftentimes gets missed is not just exposure to you that he fears. You've already seen him. You've already understood. It's exposure to himself. Like deep down, beneath all of the rage, all the manipulation and the projection, he knows. He knows he's not who he's pretended to be. He knows that he's caused harm, that he's caused hurt. He knows that he's burned down the very thing that he claims to value: trust, intimacy, safety. But facing that would also require accountability and responsibility, require sitting in shame without defense, without distraction. And narcissists are structurally incapable of tolerating that level of vulnerability because shame feels like death. So he's going to avoid it the only way he knows how. Externalizing the threat. It's not internal, it's not me. It has to be you, making you the problem, making your clarity the enemy. That's why he's going to say you're crazy rather than admit, I lied. It's why he's going to say you're too sensitive rather than admit, I hurt you. That's why he's going to say you're overreacting rather than admitting, I betrayed you. And understanding part of this gives you back your power, because once you realize that the escalation isn't proof that you're wrong, it's proof that you're actually right. You can stop internalizing the guilt that he's trying to hand you. You can stop wondering if you're being too harsh, if you're being too demanding, if you're being too ungrateful. You can start to recognize the cycle for what it actually is. A desperate attempt to preserve control in a system that only worked as long as you doubted who you were. And now that you see this system, it starts to collapse around you. Not because you're a cruel person, not because you're unforgiving, not because you're a bad person, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because the system was built on lies. And they can't survive inside the light of truth. No matter how many times he tells you otherwise. Once the narcissist senses that control slipping further and further and further, his tactics become more aggressive. And oftentimes more predictable. And how he's showing up and what he's actually doing. Because there's only so many cards he can play. Once the illusion starts to fall apart, it's falling apart. Like oftentimes you'll see where he's going to target you. He's going to start coming after your vulnerabilities, your fears, your insecurities. He knows the right wounds that you trusted him enough to reveal, and he's going to use those against you strategically, trying to figure out, how do I get to her? It's not an accident. It's not impulse. It's strategic. Use the things that are in front of you to get this person back under control. Like if you have a history of abandonment and you're worried about that, he's going to threaten to leave you. If you fear that you're not being believed, he'll start undermining your credibility with other people. If you shared childhood trauma, well, he's going to weaponize it and flip it back on you. It's not about the details. It's about the leverage. Like he's trying to find leverage on you. This is why each target attack is designed to destabilize you just enough to make you question whether you're strong enough to leave. That's the real goal here. It's not to convince you that he's changed or that something's better. It's to convince you that you can't survive without him. This is where manipulation often shows up through a cycle of escalation, intermittent reinforcement. What does that look like? Escalation could just look like crueler insults, like coming at you harder, longer silent treatments, more public humiliations, like threatening and raising those threats of abandonment. The intermittent reinforcement, the back and forth, could be random moments of affection, really good, really bad. It could be like in the tense moments, all of a sudden giving sudden gifts, apologies that sound sincere, but contain no accountability in the conversation. Moments where he appears to understand you, only to reverse it a couple days later, or to attack you for that. A lot of these tactics are textbook of trauma bonding, and the cycle of abuse creates this reward that produces this psychological addiction. Not to the abuse itself, but to the fleeting moments of perceived relief, thinking it's getting better. It conditions you to endure massive amounts of emotional pain in exchange for just brief glimpses of his approval and his affection. It trains you to see that staying is the safest option, even if it's clearly destroying you from the inside out. This isn't because you're weak. It's because the cycle hijacks your brain's survival wiring. Like you get to the place where biologically and emotionally you're tethered to the very person who's causing the most damage and the most impact to your life. And narcissists count on that. Like he's counting on your loyalty to keep you stuck with your own potential for hope. He's counting on your empathy to use that against you. He's counting on your silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have learned he won't hear it. It's not worth it. Recognizing this pattern is essential just for your growth and for your healing, because if you can see the cycle, not just feel it, you regain a measure of choice in your life and you can predict his next move. Instead of just simply reacting and waiting for it to happen, you know it's going to happen. You can prepare instead of scrambling around trying to figure it out. You can decide your responses instead of being dragged through emotional whiplash. You get to choose. Like, understand this. Like, the narcissist is escalating now because he's losing. Not because you're failing. Like, hear me on this. It's not because you made a mistake. It's not because the situation is hopeless. It's actually hope-filled now because he's escalating because your detachment is forcing him into a corner that he has no strategy of how to get out of. Like when the gaslighting doesn't work, when the love bombing falls short, when the rage doesn't make you comply, he has nothing left. There's no levers left to pull. He's pulled all of them inside his narcissistic handbook. Because narcissists are built for reaction, not for resilience. They're built for control over you, not connection. They're built for survival, not growth. And when you start taking back control of your life, when you stop participating in the game, when you stop trying to fix it, when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop trying to prove your love, it all falls apart. Maybe not instantly, not without in retaliation from him, but inevitably it does. But it's important to expect the final stage of this escalation. Like this piece called the extinction burst. Like in behavioral psychology, an extinction burst occurs when a conditioned behavior is no longer rewarded. And as a result, the subject tries harder and more aggressively to provoke a response before finally giving up. So like, for instance, in narcissistic relationships, the extinction burst can look something like this. It could be extreme declarations of love. Now we need to get married. Dramatic threats of self-harm. I'm going to kill myself. Sudden promises of therapy or change. This will happen. I'll go to therapy. I'll do this. Escalated rage episodes where it gets worse and worse. Smear campaigns, hoovering attempts, months or even years later. Like this phase can be extremely dangerous because it plays directly on the empathy and the guilt that kept you bonded to the first place. And the whole reason it's here is it's designed to make you question whether walking away is the right decision. It's designed to pull you back through shock, through fear, through misplaced compassion. Knowing this prepares you and it helps you because you can anticipate it instead of being blindsided by it. You can actually recognize it. It's a predictable pattern, not a true change in character. Because a person who only changes when they're losing was never really committed to changing at all. True transformation is proactive regardless of what happens outside. It's consistent. It's self-motivated. It's not dependent on you being there or not being there. And narcissists, almost without exception, are motivated by threat, not reflection, because reflection feels like a threat. Which means that once you're no longer a threat to his image or to control, that promise evaporates. The declarations of love fade, and all of a sudden the abusive cycle resets with a new layer of resentment for making them feel exposed and for exposing the mask. But this is the reality that you're facing. I know it's not fair, it's not easy, it's not right at all. But it is survivable with clarity, support, and strategy. Because knowledge is power, but knowledge is power when you actually apply it. And now you know exactly what's happening, not because you're paranoid, not because you're just being vindictive or you're being mean to this guy, but because you finally see the truth. And the truth, as painful as it is, as hard as it is, it's always the first step towards freedom, of seeing and understanding it. Now let's talk about what happens after. After the rage, after the love bomb, after the manipulation and those failed attempts, what comes next depends entirely on you. But here's the truth. Narcissists don't stop because they feel remorse. They stop when the system no longer works, when the emotional payoff disappears, when the vending machine that they keep tapping their card no longer gives them what they want, when their access to you, your mind, your heart, your energy is finally revoked, is finally blocked, and that only happens when you change the rules, when you stop playing the game. There's no perfect confrontation, wake-up call. There's no magic sentence. There's no just right conversation that will make him suddenly realize the depth of his impact and transform overnight. There's no light bulb moment that he's going to have. In fact, when you try to confront him, especially with labels like narcissist, it's almost always going to backfire. He's going to throw it back on you. He'll deflect, he'll deny, he'll project it back on you and make you feel crazy. And if none of that works, he may go silent altogether, as if the conversation never happened and just ignores it. This is not a lack of intelligence. This is not because he's confused. It's a defense mechanism. This is a strategy developed over a lifetime of avoiding shame, avoiding accountability, avoiding internal reflection. When you expose truth, you threaten that defense system. And without the defenses there, the narcissist can't function. So what does he do? He retreats to the only strategy that has ever worked, making you the problem, making you the issue. And if he can't make you believe it anymore, he'll work to convince others that you're the problem. Starting to smear your name, trying to sabotage your character, twisting your story to friends, to family, even your children. And he may paint you as unstable, controlling, even abusive. This is designed to do a couple things in your life. One is it's designed to regain control over the narrative. It's designed to punish you for breaking it. Because in his mind, exposure is betrayal. It doesn't matter how many times he lied, he manipulated, he harmed, he cheated on you. Your clarity, your refusal to keep playing the game is the ultimate offense. So that's why he retaliates. That's why he comes back at you. Not always overtly, not always aggressively, but consistently. It's important not to be surprised by this phase. It's important to understand it's not proof that he's getting worse. It's proof that you're getting stronger. Because the only reason he's escalating now is that the usual tactics are no longer effective. They don't work. This is where you have to stay grounded in truth and not engaging the smear campaign, not trying to convince some mutual friends of like, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, not responding to his baiting tactics, because every response, no matter how justified, feeds the cycle. Your silence is not weakness. It's actually strategy for you to heal, for you to actually grow forward. It protects your energy. It preserves your credibility, and it proves more than anything that you're no longer willing to play his game. It's common to feel grief, concern, doubt, fear, not just grief for the relationship, but everything that you compromise to stay in it. Maybe that's your peace, your voice, your sense of self. There might be moments where you question whether it was really that bad. You might miss the highs, the attention, the intimacy, the connection at times, the illusion that was there of safety, and that's normal. So what happens when you've been trained to associate love with chaos? But over time, something starts to shift. Like you stop flinching at silence. You stop justifying your emotions. You stop apologizing for your own boundaries that you've set. And you start reconnecting to parts of you that were buried under survival mode. This is part of the healing process. It doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen overnight. Like it's not a straight line. It can be up and down and all over the place. But it begins the moment that you stop trying to convince him of your worth and you start rebuilding your worth on your own terms. You don't heal by proving that he was wrong. It actually won't help you heal at all. You heal by remembering that you were right. That you're right to question, that you're right to confront him when he did that. You're right to leave. You're right to protect your peace. You're right to trust your intuition when everything in you was screaming that something wasn't right, even when he made you feel crazy for that. The voice inside of you isn't shut off. It's not broken. It's just been buried for a long period of time. And now that you've started to wake up and you've started to listen to it again, it'll actually help lead you. So where do you go from here? Like you stay the course. You continue to seek support from people who actually understand the trauma and the manipulation, not just surface level advice, because that's not going to help you. You're going to learn how to say no, how to build healthy boundaries. You're going to learn how to know who you are, build self-trust, and recognize what healthy love looks like. You remind yourself every single day that you don't have to explain your healing to anyone. And most of all, inside of this, you give yourself permission and the grace to be done. Done fighting, done fixing, done justifying your every move. Because survival is not just the goal anymore. The goal actually switches from survival to freedom, and freedom is possible for you. Even after all the damage, even after all the lies, even after all the betrayal, even after everything he tried to convince you that you could never recover from, that you could never live without him. You don't have to carry his story on your life anymore. You get to write a new one. You get to rebuild, not who you were before him, but who you always were meant to be. The journey inside this won't be easy, but it'll be worth it. And you don't have to walk it alone. If you're at this place where you're ready to break the cycle for good, I want to invite you to connect here at rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Like here, it's not just about information, it's about transformation. It's by building a step-by-step guide out of the confusion and back into clarity. Because you were never crazy. You're simply just conditioned, and now you're waking up to the reality of what's happening. Let's get you free. You've been told it's all your fault, and that makes you feel crazy. No one understands you, and that leaves you in a place of being alone. You've tried to break free multiple times, and that leaves you helpless because nothing you've done has actually worked. It hasn't actually got you free or liberated from this toxic relationship. So you feel crazy, alone, and hopeless. Guess what? That's a lie. Because all it is how you've been raised and conditioned inside of this abusive relationship over and over. And as a result, you've sacrificed your growth, you've sacrificed your worth, and you've been trapped inside of a toxic relationship. What if I showed you the path to freedom? A way for you to actually get free mentally and emotionally from the toxicity that's happening right here, right now. You deserve more. You deserve to be able to heal. And I want to help you with that. If I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Schedule a call there and let's talk.